All right, so we'll bring this out, and I want you to choose for his lap. For his lap, to keep him warm and cozy, this one. And you have 30 seconds to decide. It's beautiful.
I know he likes blue.
Perfect. All right, we'll bless it, and you will take it today.
He's got very blue eyes.
It's beautiful.
I'll show you a photo of it.
All right, I'd love to see it.
It's really sweet.
Good morning. Welcome. I gift you this image again because it is an image that invites us to a gentle, promising, wise story. It is an image that I think if we brought to our seeing in every moment, it might change and rewire our nervous systems. So I provided 3 words for this image last week as we begin every new year by thinking about the baptism of Jesus. And the 3 words I brought to this image were body, bathe, beloved. And so it seems to me that at this beginning of a year, beginning of a service, this ritual of beginning in baptism is a reminder that we come together in our bodies for very, very regular practices like daily bathing. And in those daily practices, we know ourselves again to be beloved because we are drenched, absolutely drenched with that which we have called God, to that eternal mystery. So today, 3 different words. Well, I'm changing one of them. So I've shared the thinking of a man who's done a deep dive into the Aramaic language with you before. And in doing a deep dive into the language and the culture of ancient Palestine, he says again and again, when you think of prayer, don't go to words, go to breath. Prayer is communion. Prayer is our breath communing with, part of, drenched with holy breath. So today, body, breath, beloved. Let us come to this portal and imagine our lives in this sacred, sacred story. Let us pray. Holy breath, it has been another wild week in the world, and we are weary. And so we gather in silence and sanctuary among friends old and new, following the rhythm of the ancients, seeking wisdom and courage to navigate the landscape of our hearts, to discern our place and our purpose on the planet. Holy wind, gentle breath. We stop for a moment to catch our breath, to return to our breath, which is in communion with your breath. And we sink more deeply into this rhythm of breathing in and breathing out, and slowing down and resting. Some of us are struggling with anxiety and loneliness. Some with hearts heavy with grief. Still others worried about their children, their marriage, their health, or the health of a loved one. Some of us feel as though the tank is empty. Some of us feel as though we do not have a foot to stand on and are searching for some solid ground. And so together, we lean into you, Holy One, whose heart is a peace that we can't quite comprehend. We gather to lean into you, holy breath, to learn again the mystery of communion. And we gather to participate in the human condition, but also to serve as sanctuary to one another. Let this practice be a portal to the gifts that will restore us to abundant life. May it be so. Amen. Please remain seated for the first hymn. This piece of art is by a Chinese Christian artist whose name is He Qi. It's called Stilling the Storm. So there are two storm stories within our sacred text. I'm not actually reading the one today that is about stilling the storm, but it still works. So I'm asking the question this month: what sacred practices will support us, shape us, restore us in the middle of a world where violence is escalating. So I'm reading to you from Matthew. At that time, Herod heard reports about Jesus and said to his servants, "This is John the Baptist raised from dead. That is why these powers are at work in him." For Herod had arrested John and imprisoned him because John had said, "It is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife." Though Herod wanted to kill him, he feared the crowd who regarded John as a prophet. But on Herod's birthday, the daughter of Herodias, his wife, formerly his brother's wife, danced and pleased him so much that he promised to give her whatever she asked. Prompted by her mother, she said, "Give me the head of John the Baptist on a platter." Though grieved, Herod ordered it because of his oath and his guests. John was beheaded in prison, and his disciples buried him and told Jesus. Immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead while he dismissed the crowd. He went up the mountain alone to pray. By night, the boat was battered by waves, the wind against them, and early in the morning, Jesus came walking on the sea. Terrified, they cried out in fear, but he said, "Take heart. It is I, do not be afraid." Peter said, "If it is you, command me to come." Jesus said, "Come." Peter stepped out of the boat, but noticing the wind, he became afraid and began to sink. He cried out, "Save me!" Jesus immediately reached out and caught him. So I just want to point out the highlights of this passage and then take us somewhere else. Notice the context. There is a vicious man on the throne who's also part of a vicious system. It resulted in untold violence towards a prophet of God, John the Baptist. When getting the news, Jesus immediately responded by seeking solitude and silence. And then the narrative shifts, except it doesn't. What we have next is a parable. Not a parable told by Jesus, but a parable about Jesus. So, a parable that is meant to speak into the landscape of violence, into turbulent times. So the story moves from the shore to the Sea of Galilee, where a storm has come up. And the parable, again, this is not a miracle story. This is wisdom, all right? If we think it's about a miracle, we're not going to get what we need from this. The parable tells us that Jesus heads out on the water to meet his disciples in the boat in the storm. And the focus of this parable then is Peter, who steps out of the boat to meet Jesus and then is distracted by the wild wind. In that one little sentence, like he's fine until he noticed, took his eyes off the anchor and started paying attention to the wind. And he begins to go down. Peter was managing in that storm until he got distracted. So today's sacred practice for turbulent times is making a commitment to notice where our attention has gone. And then to bring it back and reorient it again and again to that which gives life. So the passage isn't about the storm stopping. You heard how the story began. The world of violence in which they lived was real, and it was not going away. And so the deeper lesson is that storms will come. Life. Fears will escalate. And either we will shut down or claim a lifeboat called distraction. And goodness knows, there have never been so many distractions. And so the invitation is to choose again and again where we place our attention. What will we give our attention to while the storm rages? And it looks as if we are in a season on the plane. What does that mean? Let's just say we know that none of these storms are going anywhere soon. So I want to share. I was going to go in another direction, but then I went, maybe you need to find some stories that are worthy of your attention, and those will be the portals that serve our well-being. And they aren't just good stories. They're stories about how to ride the waves in these uncertain times. So, I've got 3 of them. I decided to go to the Facebook page of the Walk for Peace, the 120-day, 2,300-mile journey by Buddhist monks with their dog, Aloka, walking from Fort Worth, Texas to Washington, D.C. to raise awareness for peace, loving kindness, and compassion across America and the world. Whoa, what an interesting juxtaposition of stories, right? So I'm going to share some content with you. So here's how it begins. Just laying, so that this is the community of monks are sharing what they're doing and what their prayer is for this walk. May everyone who meets us, standing by the road as we pass, offering flowers and quiet smiles, find a sense of peace growing softly within them. May those who see us from a distance through a car window across a crowded street feel a moment of kindness and warmth in their hearts. To everyone whose life touches ours, whether we meet in person or stay connected through our hearts across the miles, may this walk for peace find a home in you. Is that a wonderful? May the walk for peace find a home in us. May this peace bring you quiet joy. May it help you feel more connected to your own heart and bring out a natural kindness that flows easily to others. And may the peace that grows inside you shine outward. We offer this prayer with humble hearts, hoping that peace might bloom a little more brightly for everyone. And now words from the leader. We begin each day affirming, today is going to be my peaceful day. When we set this intention in the morning, we plant a seed of peace in our hearts. Throughout the day, no matter what challenges arise, we can return to this gentle reminder, choosing peace, choosing to respond with calm rather than react with turbulence. May this sharing inspire us all to greet each new dawn with the same spirit of tranquility and purpose. And now, a comment from somebody who came to be part of that. Today I drove 4 hours to see the monks in Rock Hill, South Carolina. It was not the peaceful experience I was expecting. There were a lot of people pushing to get a look with their phone on their face and rushing in front of us. I barely got to see them rush by. I also had conflicting feelings because the more people there, the better the chance their mission had an impact. On the drive home, something clicked. My peace is fragile. I was tested after I waited for 4 hours and then was pushed out of the way. My peace hung in the balance of other people's actions. My peace depended on the experience I got while there. Peace that exists when the conditions are perfect is not peace, but comfort. Peace is not fragile for them because they don't protect it. They carry it within them through chaos and adversity. Peace strengthens the same way a muscle does by being used under resistance. I thought I was going for a peaceful experience. Instead, I came out with a better understanding of peace itself and how it is something you constantly work on within you. All I can say is, thank you. Your mission had an impact on me beyond what I could have imagined. And the teacher again. The moment we stop running, stop letting our mind chase 1,000 things at once and simply pause to breathe with awareness, something miraculous happens. The peace reveals itself not as something we found, but as something that's been holding us this whole time. The truth is both humbling and freeing. Everything happens in its own way, following rhythms we did not write. But here is what we can do. We can be at peace when things happen. We can meet whatever rises, joy or sorrow, gain or loss, with a steady mind and an open heart. If something can be changed, we do not need to worry. We simply take action with clear intention. If something cannot be changed, we also do not need to worry. We accept what is and save our energy for what we can actually influence. Are you hearing the echoes of another teacher here? This does not mean we stop caring. It means we stop adding unnecessary suffering to our lives. We stop exhausting ourselves trying to control the uncontrollable and focus on the one thing we can genuinely influence, our response. This is how we bring peace back to our inner landscape. We cannot control the storms that come, but we can learn to remain peaceful with them. We cannot dictate how others behave, but we can always respond with a different kind of choice. So that's the first story. How wonderfully timely. that story is in the midst of some of the present storms that are raging. And so we gather today on the eve of Martin Luther King Day. And so we would be amiss if we did not consider his loving and his legacy. And I thought I'd just share a piece of his story, another walk, another march. Again, in that same intention, peaceful nonviolence, political nonviolence. On March 25th, 1965, Martin Luther King led thousands of nonviolent demonstrators to the steps of the Capitol in Montgomery, Alabama. After a 5-day, 54-mile march from Selma, Alabama, where local African Americans, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference had been campaigning for voting rights, King told the assembled crowd, there never was a moment in American history more honorable and more inspiring than the pilgrimage of clergymen and laymen and women of every race and faith pouring into Selma to face danger at the side of its embattled Negroes. The federally sanctioned march left Selma on March 21st, protected by hundreds of federalized Alabama National Guardsmen and FBI agents. The demonstrators covered between 7 to 17 miles per day, limited by a judge's order to 300 marches over the stretch of 2-lane highway. The number of demonstrators and walkers swelled on the last day to 25,000. During the final rally held on the steps of the Capitol in Montgomery, King proclaimed, "The end we seek is a society at peace with itself, a society that can live with its conscience. And that will be a day not of the white man, not of the black man. That will be the day." Oh dear, I did this yesterday too, sorry. That will be the day of man, as woman, as humanity together. Afterward, a delegation of march leaders attempted to deliver a petition to Governor Wallace, but were rebuffed. On the 6th of August, in the presence of King and other civil rights leaders, President Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act of 1965. King was later assassinated on April 4th, 1968. Again, an old story for a prophet of good news. And yet his legacy has expanded, like Archbishop Oscar Romero in El Salvador declared, "If they kill me," and they did, "I will rise again in the Salvadorian people." And a third story. So I've been doing my best to keep the one who will not be named out of this sacred practice, out of this sanctuary. But today I think it's worth telling the story I'm about to tell. Some of you will know who James Tallarico is. He is a 36-year-old former teacher who is a member of the House of Representatives in Texas. And he will be running for the Democratic nomination for the United States Senate. His grandfather was a Baptist, so I'm taking excerpts from his interview with Ezra Klein last week. His grandfather was a Baptist preacher who said, "Our faith is very simple. Not easy, but simple. We love God, we love our neighbor, and those two things go together." And so that was the water in which James was nurtured. But then his family moved across from St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church, and there was a pastor there who may have been well ahead of his time, to the point where James reported he was tried for heresy at one point because he was just pushing the boundaries ahead of his time. Right now, James Tallarico, as well as being a member of the House of Representatives in Texas, is also a seminary student. So he is studying to be an ordained Presbyterian minister. And I have to tell you that after listening to the podcast, I've had 2 conversations with my cousin in New Zealand, a theologian, and my colleague, some of you have met Carol Smith in Halifax, going, "Oh my goodness, did you listen to that interview?" So, I'm going to share one excerpt from the interview. I highly recommend, if you listen to podcasts, that you check that one out. So they're talking about the way that this 2-party system is not getting that country anywhere, and that it's just become so dualistic. And James Tallarico wants to have a conversation about the politics of love. All right, so part of you are going, yeah, he's a politician. Yeah, he's on social media. Yeah, isn't that a great little phrase? All right, we can be jaded. Anyway, Ezra Klein asked, how does the politics of love work? And this is how he responded. I'll just tell you one quick story. My colleague, James Frank, represents Wichita Falls in North Texas. He's a Freedom Caucus member and one of the most conservative members of the House. James and I started a stupid friendship based on sharing the same first name. We joked about it and talked about how we were the James Caucus, and he was chair and I was vice chair, whatever. But then that led us to having some more real conversations, and we started to figure out that he and I are both really dissatisfied with the 2-party system. We are both frustrated by how hard it is to challenge orthodoxies in your own party and the pressure to confirm within a political party. And so I convinced James to co-author my bill, a Bernie Sanders idea actually, in the Texas legislature, to import cheaper prescription drugs from Canada into Texas. James risked a lot to work on that bill. We got it passed in the House, in the Senate, and signed by the governor. It is now law. We are working on our application as a state to the FDA to start importing those cheaper prescription drugs. So that's an example how our working together is then made a decision that will support the well-being of the most vulnerable in our state. That is an example how love changes the way we do things. So I'm going to go back to say something about Peter, because we are Peter, right? Peter is always in the room, and Peter is very often in our room. Peter, in the middle of the storm, took his attention off of Jesus, this person, this presence, representing this anchor of peace in a violent world. This deeper connection with the sacred, this alternative way of being in the world. And when he took his attention off of that, he began to sink. And we get that, don't we? And there's nothing shameful about sinking. How could we not sink, given the storms that are raging around us or those that are raging in our own homes and our own hearts? But the invitation is then to return again and again, with every breath, maybe, if that's what it takes, to the presence that is in the present, that is present in every storm. We practice reorienting ourselves to people, stories, places that restore our hope, our imagination, and our ability to see opportunities to participate in a better story. And one more thing. Jesus, when he learns that a fellow teacher and prophet has been violently murdered, leaves the crowd, leaves his students, and he himself seeks company with the sacred presence in silence. He goes to the well. He goes to the wisdom that will anchor him again in the way of prophetic nonviolence. So there's an interesting thread among these three stories. I've shared with you 4 today. James Tallarico, a seminary student, begins every day in prayer. Martin Luther King spent 2 to 3 hours a day in meditation. He was a Baptist minister. Mother Teresa rose at 4 every morning to spend 3 or 4 hours in prayer. The Dalai Lama rises at 3:30. And then, of course, the Buddhist monks. Each of these is rooted in a spiritual tradition that provides wisdom and practices, not just for weathering the storm, but for being a channel of peace in the storm. By returning again and again to the Holy One, the presence, the practice, in whom we recultivate our own peace. So I wonder, what daily distractions cause you to sink into despair? I know what mine are. The sermon's actually for me, by the way, more than you. And I wonder what daily practices hone your attention on that which fuels a better story, which will fuel your vitality, your hope, your courage. Or maybe just remind you that you are not alone, and that something restores in you when you sink and pay attention to the silence, the holy breath in which you are bathed in.